G'day guys, Sam here from Smart Caravans, and today I want to talk about inverters. If you're looking to install an inverter in your caravan, in Australia obviously we have our own rules. Yeah, have a watch of this video and hopefully I can give you some advice on some details about how these things actually work and what you need to know about them before you get one installed. So let's get into it. Okay, first a bit of a disclaimer. I'm a licensed electrician. The guys who work with me are licensed electricians. We're qualified to do 240 volt wiring as well as obviously the 12, 24, 48 volt stuff. So we're licensed to be able to do this. There is no situation where somebody who is unlicensed is able to wire this stuff in. If it's anything to do with a 240 volt connection, then it has to be done by somebody licensed. So don't go doing this stuff yourself. Not only could you hurt yourself or hurt a family member, you could be voiding your insurance. You could burn your van to the ground. Caravans are very, very unique in their 240 volt electrical setups. Whilst they are very similar to a house, they have their very own unique issues and their own unique requirements. There is Australian law stating what you can and can't do in a caravan, and there is regulations, standards, all that sort of stuff. So don't go touching your own 240 volt stuff. Get somebody who's licensed to do it. It's the law. So let's get into some details on what you need to know before you pick your inverter. I suppose first I want to just talk about what is an inverter? What does an inverter do? Why should you even care about one? And an inverter is basically something that gets 12, 24, or 48 battery power, the power that's in your battery in your caravan, and turns it into 230 volt AC power, which is power that comes out of a power point. Obviously, there's the voltage difference between the two, but rather than being DC current, which is what's in a battery, which is just a flat power, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, it gives you AC power, which is alternating current, which fluctuates a lot. So that fluctuation, which is the waveform of the power, that's where you have modified sine wave inverters, pure sine wave inverters. Basically, it's how clean is that fluctuation? How good is it compared to the grid? But we're not going to get into that because honestly, all your inverters these days, unless you're getting something really cheap and nasty off eBay, they're all with pretty good waveform on them. So we don't really need to get into that. It's not a big deal these days. Okay, first thing I want to talk about is what do you want to run? This is something that I think a lot of people don't think about with 240 volt inverters, just basically power generation in general, whether it's the grid or whether it's an inverter in a caravan. It works off basically peaks. And so if someone comes to me and says, oh, I want to put an inverter in my van and all I want to do is I want to be able to run my air fryer just for 10 minutes once a week. That's all. So just a small thing. And that's not a small thing. That's an air fryer. It might be rated at 2000 watts, maybe even more. Now, it doesn't matter whether that inverter can handle 2000 watts for 10 minutes a week or 2000 watts every minute of the day, 24 hours a day. It's the same inverter. So an inverter has to be sized to your peak loads. Not like a battery, which you've got to care about how long is that going to last over the whole week. An inverter is, can it run this device for this second? Basically, where is that top amount of power coming? So if you're looking at things like if you just want to run a laptop, they don't use a lot of power. In fact, you can usually check most devices. I don't have a laptop charger here. Oh God, this is going to be a terrible example. Got a power brick here. You probably can't quite see. It's not really going to focus on it. There's a little nameplate on the back, and anything that has 240 volt power will have a nameplate and there will be a wattage on it. So the back of a microwave, an air fryer, whatever. Anything with a 240 volt plug, usually right near where the plug goes into the device or into the power pack, there'll be a label there and it'll tell you how many watts this thing uses. Really, really important for toasters, kettles, microwaves, air fryers, that sort of stuff that people often want to run. So check that wattage. I usually say to people, you would ideally want a 20% buffer. You can get away with 10, but 20% is ideal. You don't want to be running these inverters at flat strap. They're going to be, struggling if you're doing that and you're going to be wearing them out, but they can do it for short periods. So check your wattage of your appliance and make sure you match your inverter. Now, don't forget as well, you need to take into account it's your total wattage draw. So if you want to have your air conditioner running, cooling the van down, but then you go, well, I need that running, but I also need to put some chicken nuggies in the air fryer for the kids, then that air fryer is going to pull 2000 watts. And your air conditioner is probably already pulling 1000, maybe even more with some of them. So you need 3000 watts. You put a 20% buffer on that, you're on 3,600 watts, and not many inverters are going to be able to do that much power. The modulars can do about 3,800, so they can just do it. But your multi-plus 3,000, you can do it for a short period, but it's probably going to trip out and say, nah, it's too much. Turn the aircon off while you cook your nuggets, and then turn it back on when you're done. So sometimes you might have to balance your appliance loads, but don't think I'm thinking because you've got a 2,500 watt inverter, you can run 10 2,500 watt appliances. It doesn't work like that. It's your peak combined draw. Yeah, so make sure you check those specs when you're looking at sizing your inverter. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is pairing up your inverter and your battery. You don't really have to match them, but you have to make sure your batteries meet a minimum standard. A lot of inverters will actually have in the manual, this is the minimum size battery bank you have to run this inverter. Usually I say to people, and this is a very rough rule of thumb, I say it's your bare minimum is 100 amp hours per kilowatt of inverter. So if you have a 2 kilowatt inverter, you need a minimum 200 amp hours of battery. That relies on you getting a nice, good quality battery, not a cheap one. I usually say my minimum to include some sort of safety net is 100 amp hours per kilowatt of inverter plus a 100 amp hour buffer. So if you want a 1 kilowatt inverter, that's 100 amp hours plus a 100 amp hour buffer. So 200 amp hours really to be safe. You want a 3 kilowatt inverter, that's 300 amp hours plus a 100 amp hour buffer, 400 amp hours. So I run with that, and that's usually nice and safe. The reason being is that voltage drop really affects inverters, and your batteries will naturally drop if we ignore losses in the cabling, which that's a big thing to say because inverters have huge losses in the cabling. Batteries will naturally decline in voltage. They might be 14 volts when they're fully charged. They might be 12 volts when they're not. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, 14 volts to 12 volts, but that's a big chunk. That's, my maths isn't correct though, that's like 16 to 20% drop. That's a huge amount of drop if you're trying to push that 3000 watt inverter to 2600 watts or whatever. It's going to be struggling because it's not getting the power it's meant to be getting. Now, when you have batteries in there, batteries will also sag when they're under load. The more batteries you have, the more they can share that load and the less they sag. So more batteries means that that voltage isn't going to drop when you have something like aircon with a big startup surge. So battery size is very, very important. That's a guaranteed way to send the battery to an early death is by oversizing your inverter to your batteries. It'll just eventually kill them. So good rule of thumb, 100 amp hours per kilowatt of inverter plus a 100 amp hour buffer. There's some exceptions with like the modulars, but they're unique because the inverters can actually manage the battery, plus there's no cabling, no bus bars even. They have direct connection to the battery cell, so there's no losses there. So they're a bit unique and a bit different. But for most setups, what I'm saying is a really good guideline, 100 amp hours per kilowatt plus 100. Okay, next part I want to talk about is the planning and the installation of the actual inverters. Now, obviously, you should not be doing this yourself unless you're a qualified electrician. But these are just some tips to help you if you've got the idea of putting an inverter in, just some expectations to have that your installer's probably going to tell you, but it's nice for you to know beforehand, just so that you can get a bit of an idea on what it's going to look like when they're done. The biggest thing is cable sizing. If we're fusing an inverter at 500 amps, we have to make sure the cable can handle at least 500 amps. Put that into perspective when we wire up the switchboard for a home. The cable coming in off the street, that's coming in underground or overhead cabling, the big heavy duty stuff that's coming in to feed your entire house and potentially any upgrades you're going to want to do in the future, plus a ton of overhead, they're 63 amps. Actually, some of the new houses are only 40 amps. Now, that's a huge gap between enough amps to run your entire home with a huge buffer. You're honestly lucky to draw more than 30 out of most houses at full load. There's 60 amps to 500, and this is being installed often by someone who's not licensed. That's terrifying to me. The heat, fires, sparks, that sort of stuff, that's generated purely, mostly, from current, from the amps. Your voltage is basically how it can penetrate through resistance, like insulating coatings through your skin, that sort of stuff. That's where voltage can get you. But amps is where your heat and the fires start from loose connections, that sort of stuff. And a 500 amp loose lug in a Caravan or going to an inverter at 12 volts will do the exact same amount of damage as a 400, 500 amp lug in a, well, at that size, you're talking big commercial industry like hospitals, huge factories, industrial sheds, that sort of stuff. They're the only places that are going to have cabling and lugs that big because that's huge. And a loose connection on that is going to burn the place to the ground. Exact same thing in your van. And if it sounds a bit terrifying, it should be. They're a huge thing. I regularly have other Sparkies contact me because they don't know how to do their van. And when we tell them we're fusing something at 400 or 500 amps, a lot of them look at me with disbelief and go, "Are you serious? That is a huge amount of current." I go, "Yeah, I know." That's where you don't think Caravans are that much power. Power is technically watts, but yeah, the current is massive in these things. So you have to take that into account. The cables going to your inverter are going to be big cables, very expensive per meter, and they need to be short as possible. Every centimeter makes a difference. We try to keep our inverter cables as short as possible, ideally less than a meter. If you're 1 meter away, You're actually 2 meters because you're positive and then you're negative. Another thing to just realize is they don't just go straight to your battery. You're going through fuses, isolators, shunts, all that sort of stuff. Your negative doesn't go straight back to the battery. It has to go through the shunt first. There's more resistance, more lugs, more connections that have to be done perfectly every single time. With your positive, you're going through, ideally, a nice big chunky isolator. You're going through a big fuse before you even get to them, possibly going to a bus bar. Now, you're trying to keep every single one of those connections out of resistance. They need to be done perfectly. They need a really good cold weld. We do all our crimps with a 12-ton hydraulic crimper, anything basically over 25 mil we do. The inverters are very much, they're up at 95, 120 mil. So we can't have these cables being really long. You can do some installs with maybe 2 meters of cable, but if you've got 2 meters of cable, that's probably only 1.5 meters of the actual distance, because by the time you route the cables around you, there's a fair bit of loss length there. So you want them to be close. Batteries, inverter, as close as possible to each other. If your battery's on the outside of your van, it's still sometimes possible to bring them inside, to bring the inverter inside, have the batteries outside, but they need to be as close as possible. You often need to oversize your cables in. So whereas you were going to get away with a 95 cable, now you need to go 120. Not all inverters will actually accept a 120 mil cable because that's a monster of a cable. Sometimes we have to run parallel cables. We might have to run 2 95 mil cables, or maybe 2 70s, or depending on the length of the run, we have to do the calculations to work out exactly how much cable we need, especially because that adds to that voltage drop. So what I spoke about earlier, if your batteries are down to 12.5 volts and the inverter is going to struggle, if you lose another volt through that main cable coming in, the inverter is not even going to turn on. So you can get all these sorts of problems that you don't see because it happens so fast. But yeah, you need to keep your inverter and your battery as close as possible. We often actually end up bringing batteries inside the van. That's actually better for the battery's health anyway. But yeah, sometimes just adding an inverter isn't as simple as just adding an inverter. Sometimes you do need to look at kind of reconfiguring your whole system. Another one I want to also mention is airflow and heat. Inverters can generate a lot of heat, particularly 12-volt inverters. God, they generate a lot of heat. Victron are famous for their lack of heat management. I mean, they do manage themselves quite well, but they restrict themselves very, very early on. I think as low as 25 degrees on the Multiplus. It already throttles itself down to 2,400 watts, which is a huge jump from 3,000. Don't get me wrong, great that they do it. A lot of your cheaper brands don't throttle and they just burn the crap out of themselves because they're overheating. Victron are great that they have that management in place that they will throttle down, but these things aren't designed in Australia. They're designed in Europe, Netherlands, I think. It's a lot colder over there than it is here, so heat isn't as big of a problem. But in Australia, 25 degrees, we hit those temps in winter here in Brisbane. Once you get like over 60 degrees, which I know we don't get days that are 60 degrees, but this is talking about the temperature of the internals of the unit. And when you're in a box, it's very easy for it to heat itself up to 65 degrees or more, especially on a 40-degree summer day. These things rate themselves down to nearly half of their output, which is a massive difference. And sometimes you can't even turn an air conditioner on, even if your aircon's going to pull 1,000 watts, maybe 2,000 watts on surge. A 3,000 watt inverter may not be able to start that. So temperature matters a lot with these things, so they have to be well ventilated, particularly at 12 volts. The higher voltage ones are better at the ventilation because they produce a lot less heat, less current. That 400 amp fuse at 12 volts is only 100 amps at 48 volts. So less voltage drop, less losses, less heat, all that sort of stuff. But most inverters still kicking around these days are still 12 volts. Heat is a massive thing. So you don't want to just go cramming all your components in as close as you can in a tight little spot under the lounge. You want them to be not necessarily spread out because you need to still have your storage space, but at least have some ventilation around the inverter in particularly because it needs some of that ventilation. All right, well, look, that's really about it for this one. If you've got any questions, leave a comment below. But basically, a good design system is going to give you a great experience off-grid. I've been running inverters in my personal vans for a long time. I love them. I know some people say, oh yeah, it's not real camping, whatever. Like if I'm going caravanning, I'm doing it to be comfortable. I've got kids to look after. I don't want to have a terrible night's sleep. I want to be comfy and I want to have a good night's sleep so I can go out and explore the bush the next day or enjoy my holiday. I don't want to be uncomfortable for the sake of being traditional. So I'm all up for putting an inverter in. I think they're one of the first things I always put in my own personal vans. Love them, but getting them installed properly is critical. Make sure you get someone who's licensed to install them, particularly for your insurance, but also for your peace of mind. Inverters can kill people. They put out 230, 240 volts. The 12 volt side can burn your caravan to the ground. Ensure they're done properly by someone who is preferably a licensed electrician for the 240 volt side, but someone who knows what they're doing as far as crimping the lugs properly with a proper hydraulic crimper. If you see someone using a hand tool, nothing against them. I still use them sometimes, but you question how many of these things they do if they're not investing. I mean, hydraulic crimpers are bloody expensive, but when you're doing them a lot, they give you very consistent results, and they give you a proper connection that's not going to burn the thing to the ground. So if they're not happy to invest the few $1,000s it costs to get a hydraulic crimper, then maybe they shouldn't be doing inverter installations until they're happy to invest in the correct tools for the job. But just get your system installed correctly, check the laws, and yeah, make sure the system's sized correctly, and you watch that voltage drop because it is critical on inverters. And yeah, enjoy them because they're an absolute blast. I love having the inverter in there. When the wind's blowing a gale and you can't light the barbecue, induction cooktop comes out and it cooks it in a flash. Air fryer for the kids, it's absolutely great. I've got a little 5-year-old, and you can imagine the amount of nuggets and chips that kid devours when I am just too tired to cook up anything better than that. Yeah, cooking up some veggies in the stove. It's quick on the induction cooktop. Run the aircon for maybe a few minutes before bed. It just takes that heat out of the air. Or if it's the middle of winter, maybe you want to run it on heat mode for a little bit just to warm it up and then turn it off before bed so you're not wasting power. Yeah, having an inverter is great. And it really opens up the doors for what you can do. And there is nothing wrong with being comfortable while you're caravanning. So yeah, hopefully this has helped a lot of people. As usual, I probably waffled on too much. Give me a subscribe if you're finding any of this sort of stuff useful. I hope people are. I do this for free because I think it's good to help people know. The more people know, the more they'll hopefully see value in high quality installations and understand where it's worthwhile spending money on electrical installations, because the average caravan electrical system of today is nothing like it was 10 years ago. They're not little 100 amp hour systems. They're a lot bigger and they need a lot more care, and they can be a lot more dangerous. So if you want to see any more of these videos, give me a subscribe, give me a like, and I'll keep trying to push them out. If you want to see something particular, if you want me to cover a particular thing, leave a comment. I'm going to try and address everything I can. I try to reply to every comment I can, but I do this in my very limited free time, so I'll do my best. But yeah, we'll see you in the next video, and yeah, safe travels.